The opioid epidemic has had severe and often long-term impacts on many Canadians. A new documentary hopes to shed more light on this issue. TELUS Health has produced an original documentary called Painkiller Inside the Opioid Crisis. Directed by filmmaker Mathew Embry, the piece looks at the impact of opioids and the devastation that is being felt by families and communities across North America. The documentary features interviews with frontline responders, border services, and specialists. They share their perspectives and experiences to try to unpack the issue and to hopefully address the question of how our society can treat pain without causing more. Painkiller Inside the Opioid Crisis will air on the News Forum Network this Sunday, May 14th at 9 p.m. Eastern. It will also air on Saturday and Sunday, May 20th and 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern as well. Well, joining us now to discuss Painkiller is Mathew Embry, the director of the documentary. Mr. Embry, welcome to Forum Daily.
Hi, thanks for doing this story.
A very important story indeed, Mr. Embry. Can you start by telling us why TELUS Health produced this film in the first place?
Well, TELUS Health and TELUS are, significantly interested in positive health outcomes for the individual and society at large. And one of the ways that they're able to make an impact is to create content to address issues in the community and hopefully offer solutions.
And this documentary we mentioned features the stories of Canadians who have survived opioid addiction, as well as the families of those who unfortunately didn't. So what can Canadians learn from hearing their stories, and how do you hope this would help to impact the stigma around addiction?
Well, one of the things when we did this documentary is we wanted to create a portrait of the types of people who are impacted by this. And it was important for us to show that anyone and everyone can be affected by this. So we went to the community. We found a number of stories that we hope reflect people all across Canada to show that this could happen to anyone. And I hope that when people see this and the stigma that surrounds drug addiction and people struggling with addiction, it's not people who are out of control or this type of thing. And we see people on the streets and there can be a stigma associated with that. We wanted to show that this affects, yes, people on the streets, but it also affects people in the suburbs and anyone.
And the press release for this documentary pointed to an article in the Globe and Mail, which revealed that the life expectancy in British Columbia has actually dropped for the first time in decades as a result of this opioid crisis. So why is BC so affected in particular when it comes to this?
Well, that's obviously very tragic. And I think BC is different from the rest of Canada in that the rates of poverty are higher. I think that the climate there, with the lack of harsh winters, can allow a larger homeless population to exist there. And because of that, when people are struggling with poverty and mental health issues, they can't get access to the help they may need, and they can turn to drugs. And with the opioid crisis, or with opioid and fentanyls, that can prove to be lethal.
And how have we seen this crisis unfold across Canada outside of BC?
Well, I think it's one of those things. I recall when we were doing research for the documentary, we saw that, the crisis really it started in BC or on the West Coast and slowly went across Canada as the drugs migrated their way across the nation.
All right, just about a minute left here, Mr. Embry. But in the documentary, you asked experts to answer the following question: how can our society treat pain without causing more? Did you receive an answer to this question?
Well, I don't know if we asked that exact question, but I think what we did ask is, what can we do? I mean, it's an issue of pain. People are using drugs to take away the pain. So what can we do? And I think our experts did answer that question. And it came down to individual accountability. What can each person do? What can each Canadian do to alleviate pain to the people closest around them? And hopefully that extends into the community and then across the nation.
And just about a minute left here, Mr. Embry. But as the director of this documentary, what is the final message you want Canadians to take away from seeing this film?
Well, for me, it comes down to one final word, and that's compassion. And I think each human being who watches this film and wants to do something about it can start with their next move, anything they do, their next email, their next text, the sentence they say to someone, to be compassionate, with kindness. And I think that if each of us take personal responsibility to have a world that's far more caring and compassionate, these may seem like small steps, but they're huge steps in taking away pain and then hopefully eliminating the crisis that we're dealing with.
One step at a time. All right, Mr. Embry, thank you again for joining us today and for this very important documentary.
Thank you.